Hi folks, well as promised we're now going to be looking today at a very important issue, that is amplification, how to amplify say a single person like myself or right up to a 10 or 20 piece ukulele group. Now there are so many sort of different routes I was thinking of doing with this, but I think I've landed on one. What I'd like to do to start with is look at one or two things that in my book are vitally important. Okay, when you're in a live situation, you're going to have microphones to talk into and to sing into. There's no way around it. Okay, so we're going to be talking about a particular microphone that I like for that. But when you've also got ukuleles, it is so much easier if those ukuleles have got a pickup inside and you can plug them in. Because it just means the least number of microphones that you've got live, the less chance there is of one going out of control and feedback, and generally less noise coming from everybody's feet on the stage or whatever it is. So my first tips are to have all ukuleles, if you can, to have a pickup inside, if you can. For the voices and for the microphones, I suggest one particular mic. This microphone I've been using perhaps since 1975, and it's made by a company called Shure. And the microphone is called an SM58. Now, this is a tried and tested microphone. Some refer to it as being bulletproof. Well, I'm not sure about that, but I have over the years dropped mine and replaced the grill. Everything's absolutely fine on it apart from a dented grill. And the idea is that they will just keep on going and going and going. Now, there are many microphones on the market, but if you want my advice, the Shure SM58 will not let you down. The other thing is, it's nicely what we call balanced. So if you are a vocalist who wants to take the microphone out of the stand and hold it, say, in your hand, then basically it just fits like a glove. The weight of the whole thing along the shaft of the microphone, it will not tip forwards or backwards. It just feels absolutely right. Because it's what we call a dynamic mic, it needs no external power, and you plug it straight in to the desk or the mixer. Now, with that is a great thing. There are another type of mic which Shure also make, and those do actually require some power, and those are called condenser mics. Now, we'll talk more about condenser mics and the voltage that they need. They are a better mic. Are they going to be useful in a band of 4 or 5 people? Maybe, maybe not. A soloist, I would think so. But if it's 4 or 5 people, then it's a lot of money to spend on that sort of type of equipment. The next thing you've got to think about is often overlooked. That is, you've got your electric uke and you've been to your local music store, you've ordered online and you found a guitar, typically a guitar lead they're called, 1/4 inch to 1/4 inch jack. And everybody's after a bargain, aren't they? So you can get these for like £3.50 to £5 for a 5 metre one. Now, the problem with that is one thing, it's noise. These cables typically aren't up to being stood on, wrapped up and unwrapped a number of times. The connections of the jacks aren't normally that good. So therefore, it might be a sort of cheap option to start with, but in the long run, you're better off spending, I would say, between 10, 15, if not £20 on a lead. Your lead really needs to be between 5 and 10 meters in length. So why would you want to be getting a better lead? Well, as I say, it's going to give you a better all sound, and again, less noise on the stage. If you are walking around with your ukulele, you don't want it going clank, 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 because it will. So one of the issues often that comes up in a live situation is people remembering which microphone that they're sort of using, and also the sound person knowing which one it is on the stage. Now, if you got somebody who's pretty good at sounds, done it for quite a while, they usually has their own methods. But for me, there's no better method than with microphones than to give them colours rather than numbers. So you can have on the front of a microphone a thing called a windshield or an anti-pop shield, and you can get them in different colours as shown here. And you can get these basically for £5 for a collection of about half a dozen, and it's well worth having that sort of investment. So all the microphones on the front of the stage, if there's 4 of you, what better to have a black one, a green one, a blue one, a yellow one, just as an example. So you've got your microphone sorted out, and you've got your ukulele plugged in with a nice lead and everything. That's absolutely fine. So what are we going to plug it into? Now, this is the important bit. There are 2 different ways you can go with this, and it's entirely up to you. I'll tell you what I prefer, but you may be different. Let me tell you what they are. The first system is called Analogue, and Analogue doesn't mean it's an inferior quality. The quality is fantastic still, but you do get what I call knobs to twiddle and also faders. And these are physical things that you actually move with your hands. Okay, now, so how else could you do it? Well, on the market now for the last 2 or 3 years, there are digital mixers. And what these do is have a load of inputs like on the stage. And then there's a radio transmitter, if you like, although it's not radio frequency, it's like a Wi-Fi frequency all of its own. And it will transmit to something like an iPad. So there's no physical connection apart from this Bluetooth or Wi-Fi that it sets up itself. Now, the difficult thing with this, and why I chose not to do it, is that if you have got a mixer or inputs of, let's say, 8, so that'd be 4 vocalists and 4 uke players, with something with actual physical knobs on it, I find that if you need to do something quickly, if you need to react quickly, somebody decides to take the uke jack out and plug it back in again, so you want to be able to mute things quickly. I often find that a physical knob or fader is a lot easier to find quickly than it would be on a screen. However, everything that you can do with the knobs on the screen, all you do on the screen is touch it like you would, say, on an iPhone or an iPad, and you either slide up or down or rotate it clockwise or anti-clockwise. Also, one of the things you've got to think about with the digital system and your iPad or tablet is the fact that there's a number of menu screens that you've got to go through to get to various parts. So if you want to get to an effect quickly, you've probably got to tap it 3 times to get to the screen. Now, I'm making excuses now because I'm old, but I still find it easier to do those things on the fly, just like that, with an analog desk. So I'm going to show you a variety of desks now. There are various makes on the market. I would suggest getting a soundboard that has no amplifier in at all, and have the amplifier built into the speakers. Now, we will look at this type of speaker in more detail in a future video, and basically it takes the line level signal that comes from the outputs of the mixing desk. Then you have a separate control on there for master volume, etc, etc. So more on active speakers on another video. So what I'm going to do is just show you some shots of typical mixers that I would suggest, and then I'm going to show you some of my own mixer. Now with me, there's only me. So I've got myself, my mic here. I might have also, if I'm playing a banjo uke, a second mic on another stand. So I've got two microphones running, and of course my voice or introduction microphone. So there's three things that are going on there. And this mixer that I'm going to show you now is called the MG10. It does some extra things in recording and connecting to computers, but more about that in a second. Now, have a look at this desk. You may think, well, wow, if you're only using three inputs, there must be about 30 or 40 different knobs and buttons on there. Well, yes, there is, but they all serve a purpose. And once you get used to it, you don't even think about what you're doing. If you see a whole load of knobs and buttons and you split it up, it becomes a heck of a lot easier. So if you look at the first four channels on this desk, you will see that all the things repeat themselves. It's what's called a channel strip. And in a channel strip running from top to bottom, you've got the main gain control at the top. You run down and you've got the equalization or the tone controls from, in this particular case, treble, middle and bass. As you run down further, there are sort of effects, send and returns. And as you go further down still, you then come into things like pan and also the actual fader volume itself. Now, looking at just that one strip, it isn't that complicated. All it is a repeat of that first channel. So you've got strip 1, strip 2, strip 3, strip 4. They are identical, absolutely identical. Now, also one of the things that's nice on this mixer is the fact that we use these things on the top here, these inputs, so I can use what's called an XLR, which is a 3-pin plug that comes from a quality microphone, and plug that straight in, or on that same input, because it's a combination input, I can put in a 1/4-inch jack straight into it. Now, if I'm doing that, there's another button on here which basically says how much level am I expecting. Now, remember when I was talking before about a microphone being quite a low level and a guitar lead coming from either a guitar or a ukulele is quite a hot or powerful signal, you might need to press a button on here and it will actually change by 24 decibels the input volume. So it may be that you need to cut it by 24, it may be that you need to make it rise by 24. Next door to that is a very, very clever thing which is called a low pass filter. Now, often with ukuleles, because their sort of frequency range doesn't extend down to, say, the bass notes you would hear on a church organ, and neither does your voice, you don't really need to be amplifying that sort of spectrum. Also, this will help if you do press that in. Again, noise on stage. If somebody's walking with heavy boots on the stage and it's amplifying everything in the low frequencies, you'll get thud, 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 thud. Now, I'm not saying you would get rid of it completely by pressing this filter, but it would certainly help to reduce that amount of noise that you don't want. Also, if should you be outside and there's wind blowing, I always suggest having a sort of wind sort of sock over the front of the microphone, a sort of called a pop screen, and this will help defeat the wind. But still, the wind blowing onto microphone, if it ends up direct, it has got quite a lot of low frequency. You hear this really sort of low down sort of noise, and again, if you hit this filter, it will help to reduce that. So all you do basically is plug in and play. So you move in to the very top input, and the first thing you need to worry about isn't the fader that's at the bottom, it's what's called the gain control at the top. Now, if you look at the far right of the mixing desk, you've got the main power outputs or level outputs, mixer outputs, and normally they are sort of on a red switch. Now, you don't need to have any amplification coming out of your speakers or out of your mixer, so you can turn that completely off, because all we're looking at the moment is the input stage. Now, a lot of people have this idea that with this gain control, you move it to 12 o'clock and then you alter the fader at the bottom to sort of, till you hear it, it sounds nice and pretty and everything. That's completely the wrong way to do it, okay? What you need to do is you need to be adjusting the gain control until you get what's called a clip light. Now you'll notice on this particular mixer, as I scroll down, there is a little red light there, and that little red light means that it's too hot. So I can actually shout down the microphone or laugh loudly or anything that's like high pressure going into the microphone to see if I can light up this this clip light. Okay, once it's lit, then work backwards, okay, until you carry on shouting or laughing at a loud level, and you can no longer light that clip light, okay, because if it is there all the time, it'll come through distorted. If you go too far the other way and you don't make the clip light or anywhere near that, then you have to turn up the fader so loud and it will pick up what we call noise. And we don't want to be having extra noise amplified. We want either your voice or we want your ukulele to be amplified. So just to recap, turn the gain level at the top up as high as you can and literally shout down the microphone. Turn your speakers off. Nobody else can hear it. All you're doing is shouting into a microphone to make this little light light up. As soon as it's lit, take it back anti-clockwise. Do the same exercise. If it lights again, take it further back. Once you've got it there, that is the perfect place for that input. So if you're playing your ukulele, what you should do is not do some fancy finger picking. You need to absolutely clobber the ukulele. Yeah, absolutely do it. Yeah, so hit the ukulele nice and hard, get that clip light lit, then work it backwards anti-clockwise. Once you've got that there, you'll have the perfect input level for the ukulele and for your voice. So what you need is a stage box. Attached to this stage box is a multi-core cable. Americans refer to this as a snake because basically it just unravels. It's normally, if you can get one that goes on a reel, even better. It'll prolong its life a lot better. But you need to have this with about 20 to 25 meters of length, because you want to try and get your sound person as far away from the stage as you can safely. So obviously we need to be covering this cable with something. So there's many things on the market that are called cable tidies or cable traps, where it's basically a piece of rubber and you open up the top. It's a bit like a pyramid. You open up the top, cable drops in, and then you close it again. Then people can kick it, they can walk over it. There's very little chance of them actually tripping on it because they're normally quite fat as well. So they're not sort of easy to sort of flip over. Okay, so you've got your stage box, you've got everybody plugged into the inputs on the stage, and that whole multi-core or snake is then going 20 meters or so back to where the soundboard needs to be. Okay, now I always suggest having a soundboard on a sort of place central, so you can hear what's coming from the right, what's coming from the left, and also you're going to get a mix coming from, you may have somebody with an amplifier on the stage as well. So all that has to sort of blend, and there's nothing better than staying dead center. Okay, so that's there. So that is the plug-in on the stage, the snake, having it covered down the center of the aisle if you can, having the protection there so nobody can trip over it, and then you're away. Now, again, and coming back to when we were talking before about the microphones, having the yellow and the green, the blue, whatever colour you're going to have on those, it just makes it so much easier for the person mixing just to see what you're on quickly, rather than remembering that that one on the far left was 1, 2, 3 and 4 at the beginning of the day, but as the day's gone on, somebody's moved the mics around and suddenly 1's over here or 3's over there. Or if you've got colours, you can't go wrong because you can see the colour. Just makes it a lot easier. Yeah. Now if you want to be really posh, then your 4 leads that are coming out of your ukuleles with your pickups, you can get leads of different colours as well, and that makes the job so much easier for your sound guy or should I say person, because they can actually physically see what colour lead you're plugged into and everything, so that can be your specific channel. Now, another thing, looking back at digital against analog, the digital system, a lot of the mixers have got what we call memory. Now with those faders, you can set what's called, on a digital mixer, you can set what's called a scene. So if you've got the four of you with your ukuleles and also your voices, and you feel, wow, that was a great mix, I'd like to remember that rather than doing it all again next time we set up. With a digital mixer, you can literally press a button and it will remember that scene. Now, the pitfall of that is that digital mixer will probably cost you twice as much as the analog mixer, but that is one of the beauties of the system. Some of the really posh ones have got an SD card that plugs into the back of the digital mixer, so you can potentially take it to another digital mixer, plug it in, and it will read roughly what you had on your mixer. Okay, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of configuration problems between makes, but at least you can have an idea of where you were with your mixer. But how good is that to be able to say, great sound at that gig. All we need to do on the next gig is alter the master volume, because the room's a different size. It could be smaller, it could be bigger. So it's literally the master is what you're going to be changing, not having to do a complete sound check all over again every time that you start. Now, the other thing, if you want to do it with an analog mixer, there is another way around this. It's a bit fidgety, but you can put a little bit of tape, masking tape or something, close to where the controls are for the gain, each one, and just put a little mark with a pen and the masking tape. So therefore you can quite quickly say, oh, Susan's was on that, Joe's was on that, David's was on that, and so forth, and you can do that. So as long as the people on the stage plug into the same inputs, as long as they do that, then you're not going to have a problem. All you're doing is altering the master volume. So this has been an introduction to things to do with amplification. As I say, we're going to be looking at speakers and active speakers, particularly in the next one. But we've looked at having or suggesting that you should have ukuleles with pickups, and also having microphones of a good quality, such as the SM58, which are absolutely brilliant, tried and trusted microphones. If you have those those 8 things in place, 4 microphones, 4 inputs, with good leads as well, remember, on your ukuleles, you're on your way to having a great sound. Remember to always set the gain level first. Turn the sound off the desk. There's no need to have any sound going out to the public. Turn the sound off on the master output. Lift the gain as high as it will go, then turn it back. Then do the fader last of all. Okay, so that's my little introduction to microphones, ukuleles with pickups, leads, and the mixer that I use. I hope it's been useful. Until the next time, you all take care. Ta-ra!